So there's so much we could talk about. Where would you like to start?
Maybe regarding thoughts and
Hmm.
circumstances and that model that you shared with us at our
Yeah.
forum.
That would be great. Thank you, Kalika. So, one of my certifications is from the Life Coach School. It's a life coaching and weight loss coaching certification program, which I recently completed, well, about a year ago. And we use something called the self coaching model to help people understand what's going on in their brains and how that's impacting their feelings and their experience of the world and the actions that they may be taking or not taking. So, as you know well, Kalika, because you've heard me teach this many times, and I so appreciate your support and enthusiasm, there are 5 parts to the self coaching model. There's a circumstance, which is a fact. That circumstance then triggers a thought about that fact. The thought then leads to a feeling, which is generated by the thought, not by the fact or the circumstance, which is really, really empowering to know because we tend to think that the circumstances, the outside events of our lives are what generate our feelings, but they really don't. It's how we think about those circumstances. There's so many quotes about that. It's such a popular belief nowadays, and people are really getting a lot of value from it, that our thoughts are what create our experience and our feelings, right? So the thought leads to the feeling then drives an action, and that action produces a result. So it's called the self-coaching model from the Life Coach School. It was created by Brooke Castillo, who is an amazing entrepreneur as well, has an enormously successful life coach and life coach certification business, making millions and millions of dollars. And she created this model really based on so many other studies. It comes from it has so much solid backing from cognitive behavioral therapy, so many traditions in spirituality and philosophy and psychotherapy that say that our thoughts create our feelings, which generate our actions. So that basically the biggest takeaway from it, you can study it in so much more depth, but the biggest takeaway is that if we're really mindful and intentional about what we're thinking, then we have so much more control over our lives and our experience of the world. How are we framing and perceiving and choosing to label and define the things that are happening? And how does that impact how we're feeling in the moment? So I've been teaching this a lot lately. My fellow life coaches and I have been doing these free workshops, weekly workshops, especially I've been doing weekly workshops with one of my fellow life coaches who's a physician. She's a medical doctor. So we've been talking about the medical aspects of the coronavirus and sharing the self-coaching model. And so an example that we've been giving a lot is that the coronavirus exists is a fact. It is a circumstance. So that's the first line of the model. Then we get to choose what we think about that, right? So people are thinking thoughts along, this is so scary, this is terrifying, this is horrifying, this is the end of the world. It's understandable to think those things. We want to have self-compassion for ourselves. We don't want to just shut down the thoughts. We want to be the objective observer, right? To look at those, like in meditation. I know, Kalika, you and I are both big on meditation. So when we're meditating, we can zoom out and be the objective observer of our thoughts and not attach to the thoughts and not, see ourselves as identified with those thoughts. And we don't have to believe those thoughts, right? But let's say I'm thinking, I'm so scared. This is so scary. This is so awful. This is terrible. This is the end of the world. I'm going to feel awful, right? I'm going to feel depressed and sad and defeated and demotivated. Then what's my action going to be? It's probably not going to be taking inspired, proactive action. If I'm an entrepreneur, which I am, I want to keep running my business. I want to be thinking thoughts of how I can be creative in this new environment and still offer value to my clients and create online value and programs, right? And when I'm thinking those thoughts, then I feel empowered and I feel energized. And then my action is to seek new work, new opportunities, new avenues. Now, then my result, of course, is a positive result of generating more revenue and getting more business and staying in business and staying in action. Now, I just want to say again, though, it's really important not to say that we always should choose positive thoughts, because it's fine to feel the negative feelings which come from thinking the negative thoughts. We just don't want to allow that to consume us. And we want to be able to see that with compassion and move through it as much as we can and as quickly as we can, so we can get back to the more affirming thoughts and the thoughts that drive us to feel and act in the ways we would like to as entrepreneurs to keep our businesses going. And so many of us are having to really think outside the box and think creatively about how to keep our businesses going, about how to minimize disruption to our services and avoid layoffs if possible. So I'm right there with everyone who's struggling with all of this, but I just want to say, if you can practice mindfulness and intentional thinking, it will help a lot.
So as a summary, it starts off with circumstances, thoughts lead to feelings, feelings lead to action, and action leads to results. Is that right?
A+, Kalika. You are amazing. You've heard this from me so many times. You should be teaching it yourself. You got it. You got it. And one leads to the next, leads to the next. And one of the biggest takeaways is, remember, it's never the circumstances in the outside world. There's so many quotes, right, about this. Eckhart Tolle has quotes about it, and Oprah and Brene Brown and everybody out there has quotes about how it's not the circumstances of our lives that create our feelings and our experiences. It's what we make of them, right? How we interpret them. In other words, our thinking about them. So this is not a new or novel concept, but the model CTFAR is a tool that we can use to write all those elements out and see how they're interacting, see how they're playing out in our lives, and see where we might be able to make change and shift our thinking, and therefore shift everything and ultimately the results. So yes, you got it. Any other questions about it?
Yeah. You know, a lot of times when people think about their thoughts and their feelings, they're sort of like jumbled up. You know, it's like they feel something first, even before they even think that they have a thought. Can you share us an example of the difference?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and this is, by the way, why coaching is so valuable, because this is the work we do in coaching. So many times when someone comes to coaching, it, as you said, it's all jumbled up. I'm feeling this way and I don't know why, and this is what's happening, and it's not what I want to be happening, right? And I want this result. And so rarely do people actually talk about their thoughts. They talk about how they're feeling. They talk about what they're doing that they don't want to be doing. They talk about the results they're getting. And so in coaching, we really dig deep to figure out what's going on in the thought realm and what's going on in people's minds, because they say, experts say, that we have 60 to 80,000 thoughts per day, right? So people, as you said, usually have no idea what's going on in the thought realm and in their mind. So we do a little coaching and, okay, what are you thinking about that? Let's talk about how you're probably framing that. So I can, you know, a really simple example, since we're talking as entrepreneurs, is about our businesses, right? So when we first started with this lockdown and safer at home, I completely am on board, understood, no question. And my thoughts in the beginning, to be honest, went to, well, my business can't survive this. So Kalika, what is that? Where does that go in the model? My business can't survive this.
Well, thought.
Yes, right? Is it a C?
Oh, no, because the circumstances is we're in this pandemic, right?
Exactly. So, but how many people out there do you think are thinking, how many entrepreneurs like us may be thinking, my business can't survive this is a circumstance?
Right. Yeah. They don't know the difference.
Right. So the first trick, and this will change your life in every aspect of your life. This is how I've lost weight and got healthier and improved all my relationships and my marriage, and it dramatically increased my revenue. Is the first part is realizing that many of the things that you think are facts and absolutes are just your thoughts, and you can change them. Right. So initially I was thinking, my business can't survive this, because the biggest part of my business has been stand-up speaking and training. And as you said, clients like Google and Impossible Foods and Mattel, they hire us to provide and facilitate their leadership training, in many cases all over the world, myself and my employees. So immediately, one of the thoughts that I struggled with and I had to identify was, my business can't survive this if we're all at home for months, right? And so how do you think that would make me feel to be thinking that, Kalika?
Well,
keep the quiz
terrible,
going.
right?
Terrible.
Right.
Yes. Depressed, defeated, right? So in coaching, it's like, oh, okay, so this is what you're thinking. How does that make you feel? Really unmotivated, really depressed. And our feelings drive our action. So what action do you think might come from me thinking that my business can't survive this and feeling terrible all the time? What am I going to do?
Maybe be unmotivated or just want to give up.
Yeah. Yeah. I give up. I don't even try, right? The action line can be inaction. I do nothing. I don't take positive, proactive, movement in the direction that I need to go to keep my business alive, right? I just decide that it's impossible and I don't take the action that needs to be taken. So the result then is my business doesn't survive, right?